In your report, you point out that California's policies haven't always been so liberal. You speak specifically to Prop 187, which denied services to immigrants who entered into the U.S. illegally. It was deemed unconstitutional 20 years ago, but what were the long-term effects of that policy?
Yeah, I mean, Prop 187 is really looked at by political analysts as a turning point for when the state went from kind of purple to really deep blue. And it's because it was a galvanizing force. I mean, Proposition 187 would have banned immigrants in the country without legal documentation from receiving most state services, and that includes even attending public school for children. So it passed, and it was closely tied to Governor Pete Wilson's re-election campaign. He was facing a tough re-election against Kathleen Brown, who was the state treasurer and the sister of Governor Jerry Brown, and he tied himself to Proposition 187. Republicans tied themselves to this very controversial ballot initiative that led to protests and really galvanized the Latino population in the state, which is today the largest racial or ethnic demographic in California.
So how has the voting trends of the Latino population impacted California politics?
Yeah, so I mean, first you have to start with just the sheer number and the sheer of the Latino population in California, right? So back in 1970, there were 3 million Latinos, and as of the 2010 census, that number is now 14 million. And while the voter turnout rate for Latino voters and also following along similar lines, Asian voters is not as high as it is for white voters or for black voters, that is a just huge number of new voices in the state. And up before 1994, when Proposition 187 went on the ballot, Latinos tended to lean Democrat, but it was much more mixed how they would vote. As a matter of fact, 50% of Latinos who voted in 1990 voted for Governor Pete Wilson. But after 1994, after Proposition 187, we saw a real shift where just overwhelmingly Latino voters side with the Democratic Party. And I think it wasn't just Proposition 187, there were further ballot measures as well. There was a ballot measure to ban affirmative action, another one to require English language only education in schools, both of which passed. And there was a rhetoric adopted by the Republican Party that Latinos and Asians really saw as anti-immigrant and to some degree anti-them.
And we're looking into this based upon the California dream. How does California's politics impact the pursuit of the California dream, i.e. schools, obtaining home ownership?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about all of it. You think about political parties put out their platforms. And their platforms are essentially visions for what the state should look like. What kind of health care should the state be providing? You know, what kind of support for schools? $15 minimum wage in California. Extensions of Medi-Cal, trying to extend health care further for immigrants who are not citizens or who don't have legal documentation. Across a broad spectrum, right? What are our housing policies? The new affordable housing packages in California, cap and trade, the state's climate change policies, all of these things that influence our daily lives. What the tax base is here. What do we charge people to live here? All of those things are dependent on who our state lawmakers are and who our local lawmakers are. And so that's, if that were to switch, you would see a major difference.
Very interesting. Ben Bradford with Capital Public Radio, thank you so much.
Thanks.